right, you guys, thank you so much for coming in with United Community Change. Today we have Chad Courtney, who's going to tell us all about himself and what he's got going on as well. We're going to talk about Springfield Public School Board and his candidacy on that election. We also want to let you guys know that we do have a lot of things coming up as far as voting goes, and to just go to our YouTube channel, subscribe below, and comment if you have any questions regarding this session that we're having today. As well, Juneteenth is coming up, so if you guys are interested in being a part of Juneteenth 5K Freedom Walk, our 5K, and then as well our water balloon fight, then register, and you can go to facebook.com/UCC Empowers, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. And so let's get to it. Hi, Chad. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm well, Mia. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
I appreciate the opportunity to come.
Yes, I just want to say I thank you so much for, taking the opportunity to come talk with me so that we can address the minorities in our community as far as this election goes. And so we just want to kind of educate them, tell them about yourself. And then I have some questions here that I'm going to ask you, the same questions that I've asked every other candidate. It's an equal opportunity for everyone and to be able to share their voice. So tell us about you, who are you?
Well, my name is Chad Courtney. I am a parent, a father, a husband. I've lived in Springfield now for over 22 years, or going on 23 years actually. And I have 3 children. All have gone through Springfield Public Schools or are currently in Springfield Public Schools. My daughter Maggie graduated from Central High School in the IB program in 2020. My son Luke is a senior at Kickapoo, and my son Eli is a sophomore at Central as well. I'm an attorney. I practice in the family law area mainly, and so that means I deal with a lot of issues regarding children, and one of my jobs is that in that capacity is serving as a guardian ad litem, which a guardian ad litem is a person who represents the best interest of children in cases where there are allegations of abuse or neglect. And also I am a mediator, and what that is I help people resolve their conflicts by helping them meet together and do a mediation, which is an alternative to going to trial. Most of those cases are in family law, and so they're either a paternity case or a divorce case that has children involved in it, for the most part. But I also do regular divorces as well. But for applicability purposes here, it's my experience dealing with people from all over Greene County and all over the Springfield Public Schools school district. And in that capacity, I've seen people and have dealt with issues in different schools all over the district. My children have been, in addition to Kickapoo and Central, they were Disney kids, and they went to Wings. And my son got in the lottery for the Wolf program. And sorry, something popped up on my screen. The Wolf program, my other son did the HSA program. My daughter did a reverse mainstream program. The reason I bring up all those things is I've had at least 9 different buildings that my children and my family have been involved with across the district, and interacting with all those different teachers and administrators over the years. In my capacity as we're serving as a guardian ad litem, I've been in most of the elementary schools in town at one time or another, meeting with children there, and a lot of times in their school setting, because it's more comfortable for them. And so I've dealt with administrators and had that experience. I'm a small business owner. I've been an owner of my own practice for the last 16 years with my partner, Ann Mills.
What is your business, just in case no one knows?
Well, it's Courtney and Mills is the name of the firm, and we are located on Battlefield here, just west of Campbell. And I've been, so I know how to make budgets. I know how to work with money that I have to work with, and how to, and kind of those type of roles. I have served on multiple boards over the years. Springfield Ballet Board, I was president of that for a couple of years back in the early 2000s. I've been a board member of some soccer clubs in town and been dealing with those as nonprofits. I have served as a troop advancements chair for Boy Scout troop in town, 235, for going on 4 years, I think now. That capacity, my boys have gone through that program as well.
So you have done just so much in the community. Like your kids have been really involved. You yourself have been involved with Springfield Public School administration. And also you've done a lot of things that kind of complement the role that you're running for.
Yeah, I feel that I'm someone who's been in a lot of different, I've worn a lot of different hats over the years, and it's given me a lot of different experiences in life, and it gives me perspective that I can I want to take to the school board and have that to be able to give the perspective and represent everybody's interests.
And so as a lawyer and, running your business, like you have the perspective of working with other professionals and then also working with families as well, right?
That's correct. And my leadership style is kind of a consensus-based leadership. I like to get different perspectives and form an agreed upon resolve that everybody can live with.
Awesome. So thank you for introducing yourself and sharing with us, all the things that you've done here in Springfield, and also that you've gotten your kids involved with. That just shows that, you're a personable person, and you get out there, you get to know people. So that's good to know. So tell us, why are you, Chad, why are you running for the Board of Education? And then if elected, what will be your priorities?
Well, I'm running for the Board of Education because I'm a staunch believer in public education. I think public education is the bellwether for any community. And we have to have a strong public school system in order to have our community thrive and continue to do that. I think that my kids personally have had a great experience and been greatly prepared for their experiences beyond college. My daughter's at Mizzou and she's doing fantastic up there. She's told me that she said, well, Dad, some of my classes up here are easier than they were at Central. I said, well, that's good. I said, that's good that you had to work hard in high school to get to that point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my reason for running. I've always had an eye for serving on the board. I think that all my experiences and that type of thing, this is a position that I would like to be on, to serve in that capacity, because I think I'd be good at it. And the reason is I don't have an agenda. I don't have an axe to grind with anything particularly about what's going on in the district. I think there are a lot of things that are going on in the district that are good. I think that there are a lot of things that we need to work on. And you asked me what my priorities were, and that would be working with Dr. Lathan and her entry program and what she's trying to accomplish with getting these test scores up. And I want to keep that in mind. The test scores, I think, are just one measurement of what a kid does on one particular day, and whether or not they learned that skill the next day, the next week, or whatever, we don't know. But it is a measuring tool that provides us some information. But there are a lot of, what I see in my work is there are a lot of other factors that are going on behind the scenes in a kid's life that impact their ability to perform well at school. Are they eating? Are they getting sleep? Is there conflict in the home? Those are all things that impact a kid's performance, and that would be a perspective that I would want to bring. I know the other candidates have talked about, really being on the test scores, and that, like I said, that's something we've got to really look at. But I think we're moving in the right direction with what Dr. Lathan has done with her reorganization of the administration, and with we've made this new hire with her, and we've got to see what she's going to be able to do. I'm really excited to see what she can accomplish, because I think that she's brought a lot of energy and a good perspective from someone who's from outside of the area to be able to do that and help Springfield Public Schools thrive.
Absolutely. It seems like you're really excited with Dr. Lathan and the things that she's trying to bring to the education system here in Springfield.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What differentiates you from the other candidates and or board members?
Well, I think we kind of touched on it already. I think I'm the breadth of my experiences. I mean, if you just start going down, I'm a parent, I'm a I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney, I'm a guardian ad litem, a mediator, and a small business owner. And I'm a homeowner, so I understand
Mhm.
all of those different aspects of taxes and those types of things that go into the role of the school board. Which the role of the school board to me is setting a budget, hiring the superintendent, and letting the superintendent work with the principals and the administration on her side of things to accomplish what we need to do, and then evaluate what the superintendent is doing, and set policy in that nature for the school.
Okay. Okay. And then let's talk about the campaign. Have you received any donations at all or endorsements from any groups? And if so, like, what are those groups?
Yeah, I'm very happy to say that I've received the Chamber of Commerce endorsement. Um,
Amazing.
and I've been, like I said, I've been a small business owner for several years now, and the Coalition for School Board Recruitment was the group that reached out to me in order to seek this election. They
Okay.
first contacted me a couple of years ago, and I couldn't do it at that point in time. But this time around, I said yes, and it certainly did not guarantee the endorsement from the Chamber of Commerce, because that's a separate entity from what the chamber is. Um, but that endorsement, it means a lot to me, because it says that my business peers are supportive of what I am. And the reason I bring up the Coalition for School Board Recruitment is that they didn't ask me my views on anything when they came to me. They looked at who I was and my background, and know what I've done, and the work that I've done and other things, and know that I have the ability to do it.
Fantastic. So what is this? We're going to talk about a little bit about of education governance. And a lot of people may not, some parents out here, they don't know like the back end of the things that are happening. So we want to talk about and educate them about it. So this little section here is just, to provide education and your knowledge of, what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure.
What is a school board member's role and responsibility, and how does that role differ from the role of the superintendent or administration?
Okay. Well, the way I look at it is that the board has one employee. The employee is the school board is a superintendent, excuse me, the school superintendent. And so that is the role of the board, is to set policy and in conjunction with the superintendent, and let the superintendent go work with his administrators and the principals, and they hire the teachers and they hire the staff, they hire now our police department and our school district. And then the budget is setting a budget every year, and setting the teacher salaries and building maintenance and everything that goes into that is the main purpose, I believe, of what the board's role is. And then working with year to year on what we get from the state. I mean, that's one of the things that I've learned in talking to other board members who have served in the past or currently serving, is that's kind of a rolling thing. I mean, you never know one year or the other what kind of money is going to be coming from the state, in addition to what money you receive based on enrollment.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the board is basically like the bucket of resource for the superintendent who goes out and actually does the work. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the board makeup itself, I mean, this is a volunteer, non-paid position for each of these board members. So
good to know.
Yeah. So this is something that we're not making any money to do this. We're not, this is there because we all have a firm belief in what we want the public education to succeed. And so then, that's why we have the superintendent that goes out and she comes to us with her ideas, and the board approves those things, because we want to make sure that we're a sounding board for her, or whomever the superintendent might be, as to what the policies she wants to put in place for the district.
Okay. And so as far as being on the boards, and I'm glad you brought up that, it's a volunteer position. So would that mean that is that much more important for like the community members to be involved in the board?
Community members as far as parents, is that what you mean?
As far as parents, or yeah.
Oh, well, certainly. I want to know what parents what's going on with their feedback is very important. Because they are, for lack of a better analogy, they're our customers. That the kids are their customer. The product is the education. We want to know that everybody is happy with what that product is. And if there are issues that are going on across district, I mean, we can't get into individual issues with superintendents or excuse me, principals or teachers. Those are things that are handled administratively. It would take quite a bit for it to get clear up to the board level.
Okay.
Something like that to be dealt with. But things like school start times, that's something that parents have really had a lot of feedback on. Something I've dealt with over the last year or so when we've went through the system. Those are issues that parents are really wanting to know more about.
Okay, fantastic. What is the best way to address differences of opinion on the board or between the board and the administration?
Well, I think the best way to address the differences of opinion is to, and what I come across as a lawyer, not only as a mediator, but is you got to look at things from the different side. You got to be able to set aside what you're thinking and look at it from the perspective of the other person in order to rate and have that communication going back and forth in order to be able to move forward and have some sort of consensus. If you're just in there to just, it's my way or the highway, that isn't going to be good for everyone. And that isn't going to be good for the long run either. So.
Fantastic. Let's talk about, could you support a board decision that you didn't, vote in favor of? Why or why not? Especially considering, you're saying that, we're going to have to take in so many opinions, but then we end up with a decision that may have not been what you wanted. Like, what would you do with that?
Well, that's a very good point. And that is something that that I've learned from over the years of service in other areas, and as well as serving in groups. When you're a part of a group, especially part of a group as large as SPS, 25,000 students, I don't even know off the top of my head how many teachers and staff and administrators that we have. It's important to have a board that is unified, and even if something that I might disagree with, if that's the board decision, then that's the board's decision. And I will support what the board is. And then if there's another opportunity to bring that issue back up and try to bring something different to that topic, then that will be done at appropriate time. But it's not going to be something that if the board makes a decision to do something, that I will be out vocally being in opposition to it, because that's not going to help everybody.
Yeah. The board has to come to a consensus of a solution, right? For everyone to have to make the decision together. Yeah. And sometimes it's not just based on what one individual wants. It's kind of different pieces of what everybody wants. And then, okay, what's going to be the best way to fit all of that in?
Yeah, that's the way our government's supposed to work.
Supposed to.
There's these things cause give and take and compromise. That's how things are supposed to go. But we forget about that because we're seeing that isn't what happens now. We're so polarized.
Right. And do you feel like it's the motivation to kind of get like-minded people, to get everyone on the board or everyone in any government type situation like-minded so that decisions will be easier?
No, that is exactly the opposite of what I think should happen. You need to have people on the board that have different life experiences, different backgrounds, different upbringings, that gives you different perspectives on these issues. And because I might not know about the way you would feel about something, mm-hmm. and you would bring a perspective, well, that's a great idea, I never thought about it that way, or myself, vice versa to you, that I might bring something to you that you wouldn't have thought about. And that's why it's important to have a diverse and wide range of representation on the board of people.
And so what you're saying, or what I'm hearing, is that, being inclusive, on the board, and, bringing different type of backgrounds into the board allows you to find out things that you may not have brought up, or you may not have concern with, unless an individual of that background or that experience were able to speak about it. Is that right?
That's true. And that's why the board is nonpartisan. That's why it's supposed to be not apolitical. I mean, it is because we're supposed to set aside those things when we go in that room to talk about school board, because if there's anything that we all should be behind is educating our kids.
Right. And then I just sitting here thinking about, this conversation, then we think about the kids, not leave them out, and the parents, and the thoughts of everyone needs to kind of be in the room to reflect, the decision for the entire community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so how can the board be accessible to the community, to be, and to specific community groups like, minorities, or, those who are coming from abroad?
Yeah. Well, if I'm elected, I will plan to have my email available, be able to respond to people as best I can. If there are groups that would want me to come speak to them about something, or want to have a back and forth about an issue, I'd be willing to do that. Springfield, Dr. Lathan has just started the SPS University things. We're getting ready to have the second one here next week at Kickapoo. She had the first one, I think it was at Parkview. That is a great opportunity for people to be involved and to know what's going on in the school district. I don't know how to use Canvas very well as a parent, but you have opportunity to learn how to do that there. And so that might be one of the things I take advantage of.
Yeah.
And then as far as communicating with parents, I a lot of things. One of the issues that's come up that in this campaign has been the amount of speakers at board meetings. Those are limited contacts for the board. I would like to have more of an opportunity to talk to those folks beyond just the 3 minutes that we have available in the session, and we have to have those limits and those protocols put in place, or the board can't get done what it needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to shut off debate or shut off contact, because I want that information available to me as a board member to make a decision. Right.
All right. So moving along here, we want to talk about the educational program. And this is where things kind of get, a little controversial, but you can handle this. Let's see. What issues do you believe your district needs to address in its academic program and offering? And then with that, what changes would you recommend about it? And if I need to repeat the question, feel free to let me know.
So you're wanting to know what issues that are facing the district that need to be addressed. Well, we kind of touched on test scores. Test scores need to be worked on. We need to work on getting those up, specifically MAP scores, and getting our proficiency rates up in the district. We have had areas of success across the district, and we need to, I know we have dealt with that issue in the past by the board, seeking consultants or whatever to come to talk about those issues. But when you have pockets of success, I'd like to know why those specific schools. York Elementary comes to mind. And they had some success there. What were they doing that another school that wasn't performing well didn't do? And that would be one of the main things that I would like to see. We have building maintenance issues that we have to keep up. We have to keep up with our buildings. And Glendale High School is going to get a new roof. It's going to cost us quite a bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so those maintenance programs need to be kept up. As far as programs, I'm a fan of the school open enrollment in town. As my kids have taken advantage of that, and it helps you find your niche in the school district for you as a kid, and you may not be succeeding at one school, but the other school may have a different program that you would like to do. Something I think that we need to continue is the OTC program, and the coalition that we work with them as far as making students that are not college bound, which not everybody is, and not everybody should be. We need people in those jobs, and need to be ready to enter the workforce and be ready to succeed at OTC if we can get that training and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. The training programs are really important for the youth, especially when we're thinking about the youth coming up and, the pathway that they want to take, that they be able to immediately take advantage of that so that there's no gap in their success.
And there's so many trades, so many jobs that you can come out and make a really good wage if you just get the training.
You don't have to wait 4 years to do that.
And you don't have the debt that goes along with it.
Exactly. And that's really important. I'm glad that you said that, because that's really important for our minority students and our minority families to understand that there's different pathways that you can go in the school system, and some things that you're not able to afford isn't the only way to go in order for your child to be successful. They can definitely take on OTC, take on trade programs, or find other programs that's going to lead them to something that's going to help them be successful, instead of go to like a 4-year university, feel like they have like this huge mountain to climb, and then they're kind of in this teeter-totter moment of, okay, how am I going to go up against this, and then how am I also going to make money, as a young person and in this atmosphere, and a lot of minorities are mostly here, I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of minorities are low income, and so we need to make money fast. Money has to come into the household, or else you're kind of up against a wall, and some people and some students have to worry about, am I going to have to go to school, or can I go to work? How do I do both? I know I went through that as a youth, trying to decide like, okay, what's going to put me in a position where I can keep getting educated, but also go to work, and even if a program, like if a job offers you to pay for your college, you're still up against the wall. Like, how do I use those benefits if, there's no time and I'm making pennies?
Right. That's exactly right. I think, when I was growing up, I assume, as we were discussing before, I'm quite a bit older than you are, but we've been told the only way to succeed is to go to college. You got to go to college. You got to get beyond the high school degree. Well, that's not true. I mean, it isn't. I mean, you've got the opportunity. Welders come to mind. I've got a kid's friend who just went to a brief program and is going to make almost $100,000 right out of the box as a welder. You got to be able to do it, but if you can learn how to do it and do it well, then you can make a lot of money. You don't have to have that college experience if you don't want to. And you could always, if you get that trade, then you can go to college later if that's what you want to do. If you think you need it at that point.
Yeah, move up that ladder. Okay, fantastic. All right, we kind of okay, so this is a different question. What is the role of schools in teaching children about the topics such as sex education, cyber safety, AIDS, and wellness, and bullying?
Okay, that's quite a broad range of things there.
It's a right. These are all the controversial things, that parents are wondering about.
I mean, I think there is a role for schools to touch on all of those in an age appropriate manner. We certainly don't want to supplant the role of a parent in some of those issues. I mean, obviously bullying wouldn't be in that role. We got to make sure that nobody's being bullied, and try to take steps to protect children from being bullied. Sex education needs to come about in an age appropriate manner. I mean, specifically with, kids who might have two parents that are two dads or two moms, and explaining that to them, that's what they have or whatever. I don't know how teachers handle that specifically, but I know that they have to deal with those issues on an age appropriate basis, and not get into the whole substance of what that means, other than what might be appropriate on an age appropriate level. And making sure that parents have the knowledge of what's being talked about and what's being taught in their classrooms.
Right. And I just, I've asked, others who are running, about access to information, if it's important that a child has access to this information based on the fact that they're dealing with this, outside of the home, whenever, because a lot of parents are working 18 hours, 12 hours a day, and their child is at home. The parent may or may not, be okay with some of these topics, but the child is dealing with this on their own, in their experiences, in their environment per se. So, is it important that children at least have the access so they can make these decisions, or at least make, conclusions about what these things are outside of the home?
I think you do. I don't want to limit teachers. I trust educators. I trust them. They went to college. They learned. They have a drive to teach kids. They have a drive to make sure that those kids succeed. And if they feel the topic is appropriate for their classroom and it's approved, part of the approved curriculum, then it's part of that. Allowing kids to have access to the information of difficult topics and topics that are controversial is paramount in my perspective, because it allows the children to become critical thinkers and to decide for themselves how to deal with those issues. If you shelter them and you don't expose them to some of these more controversial issues, then what are we doing? They're going to face that in the real world when they get out of the classroom and away from their homes,
right,
away from their parents. And we want them to be able to have the thinking skills and the critical thinking skills of being able to deal with them.
And it kind of helps. It may, it is very controversial. And I know I have children of my own. I have 3. So I have students going through, and there's certain things that I'm not okay with at all, and in my home. However, I always think, how am I crippling my child by trying to keep them away from this information? Because once someone presents it to them and I'm nowhere around, what will they do? What will they do if they lack that information? So, it's good to just kind of discuss, is access okay? Is that the role of the parent or the role of school, or as a community?
Right. And you specifically with your LGBTQ community and kids that are going through those and having those issues, sometimes a teacher or a counselor at school is the only person they have access to that can trust to keep that confidence to allow them to talk about what they're facing, and the suicide rates among those kids is high.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
So, and then we need to make sure we support those kids.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on, this is a hot topic that's going around and everyone is being asked this question. What are your thoughts on your school district's program for special education students, English language learners, and gifted students?
Okay. Special education is something that we need to make sure is a part of our school district. It's of course it's federally mandated to do that and provide those kids with the education at their ability level and help them to succeed. I want to make sure that we're providing adequate resources to our schools to allow them to perform and provide those services, and make sure that we're adequately meeting the needs of any student that we have in our district that has special needs. And I'm sorry, the rest of the question.
Yeah. The question was, what are your thoughts on your school district's programs for special education students and gifted students?
Okay. Well, gifted side of things, unfortunately for me, my kids have been on the gifted side of things. The WINGS program is an awesome program. And it allows the kids to be in an environment that helps them explore things beyond their own classroom. My daughter graduated from the IB program at Central, and that was a very rigorous protocols and educational experience for her. And so I think I want to make sure that those programs continue to succeed. One thing for Wings in particular, transportation has always been an issue for them, and kids being able to have access to those. And that's kind of a barrier based on parents working or parents being able to pick up and drop off kids. One thing I'd like to see or explore is the possibility of providing transportation from their home school to the two Wings. It would take one bus, per elementary school that goes on that particular day. And that way would maybe allow more kids that qualify to participate and not have to stay in their home district because they lack the ability or the access to having the transportation.
I'm glad you said that. That's actually new information to me that, that the Wings kids don't get transportation, because then you are kind of opting out a whole population of students who don't have access to the transportation but might qualify for that program.
Yeah, and I think it's important to look at that issue, and it's something that has come up in this campaign to me. It's been a while since I've had a kid at Wings, but then I thought back, I said, yeah, we had to really make some sacrifices to, luckily at the time my office was up on the north side of town, so I was taking my kids to school, but my wife's parents were the ones that were picking them up afterwards. If you don't have that family support, then that might cause a kid who might otherwise qualify for that program, and we need to take a look at trying to provide those services if they're available, or if we can budget it.
Yeah, and those are the type of equity. No, that's something that, falls under the topic of equity, and just making sure that all kids have access to the same opportunities as the other kids, that are with them in their atmosphere, and that they all at school, have the same opportunities to them as far as education goes, and having the push or being able to exceed and excel the way that you would like to as a child, not being held back, or like you said, stay in the same position because you don't have the resources or the tools to get where you need to go in order to indulge in that.
Right.
Good to know. Okay. The next one, what is CRT? Like, what is it and how do we approach it?
Okay. Well, critical race theory is a theory that has been studied for a long time. My background in undergrad was in sociology and political science. I have degrees in both. And it is a theory that looks at what the long-term impact of slavery has had on our nation and our current society, and whether there is implicit bias in certain institutions that are governmental, societal institutions, and how to address those issues. It's become a rather hot topic. I mean, as far as teaching it in schools, that's not being taught in Springfield public schools. I don't think that concept is like I said, is like a graduate level type concept that it doesn't need to be taught in Springfield public schools, and I don't believe it is. But that doesn't mean we can't deal with the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have the training of the implicit bias training that we all come from. You and I, the other day when we talked about my background. I'm from a small town in Northwest Missouri. And when growing up, I didn't have anybody that didn't look like me. Didn't have anybody that was a homosexual. Didn't have anybody that that came from a different background. Didn't have that experience until I went to Mizzou. And while I was at Mizzou, I had that opportunity to be immersed in diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, and anything across campus at that time when I was there. And I know it is still the same when I have my kid there. That's always something that's at the forefront, is talking about those issues. And that's, to me, it comes down to the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated, and to understand that something you might be thinking about is something that comes from way back when that you didn't know was something that you shouldn't be thinking
I
about.
want to break down your experience, being in an environment that was just like you, and then immersing yourself into another environment that included other people who weren't like you. What was your immediate thoughts of that, good or bad? What was your immediate, and then how did you develop as you started getting a gist of other people? A lot of, and the reason why I say this, because a lot of people don't understand that perspective on your end, being being put in a position that you haven't experienced before, and then having to try to learn to kind of get the gist of what people are talking about and the experiences they may have went through. Do you get what I'm going?
Yeah, I do. I can remember walking outside of my first class at Mizzou from Middle Bush Hall, and there's more people on the street than what I grew up with in my hometown. And they're all different people, all walks of life, races, colors, creeds, everything you want to, any acronym or synonym, whatever you want to say, definition that you might want to throw out there. And it was daunting. I mean, it is, kind of overwhelming, and you just have to find how I overcame it is I found my niche in my fraternity and a small group of small town guys. But then I grew out of that, was able to go across into campus activities and get involved with other people and meet people who are not like me. I mean, part of what I learned there is to be open and receptive to new ideas. And that's been something I've lived throughout my whole adult life, is to listen to somebody that might be different than me and share with someone that we both might learn something from each other.
And how did you go about reaching out to minorities, and how do you go about reaching out to minorities now?
Well, I have minority clients that are minorities. I don't have a lot of interaction with people who are outside of just the social aspect of thing because of sheer numbers or who my kids are involved with and that type of thing. But my daughter at Central, she had people of all different races and creeds and going in Central. And that was really cool. So it's really cool to meet somebody that has a different experience than you.
And, I've asked some of the others this question as well. What opportunities do you feel like there are in Springfield, in this Southwest Missouri Ozarks area, to engage with more minority organizations or more minority people, and so that we can become more diverse, more inclusive, more culture aware?
Yeah, I think the multicultural events that we have around are a good start. I saw that, I think it was at Westport Elementary here a week or so ago. They had a cultural night and had different things from different people there, different walks of life performing their culture, or maybe it was a cooking exercise. I don't remember exactly what all the activities were, but activities like that are important. I mean, the Japanese stroll gardens they have their cultural things, and just getting out and getting involved in different cultural festivals and things is a good start. In trying to learn about different cultures
and backgrounds. Yeah, festivals are a good way to just kind of ease your way into getting to know someone, because you might bump into them at a popcorn stand and then you can trigger a conversation, or you might, help a small kid get some snow cones that, that just kind of starts conversations in that way. But as Springfield, I think our population is between 10 and 15%, between somewhere around there, minorities. And so,
right.
Okay, so it's not a lot of minorities in this area. And so it's always interesting to me how one would approach the situation, of diversity, equity, inclusion and how far you're going to actually make that happen with such small group.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be, I mean, it's because we tend to all stay, there's not a lot of interaction. There's
Yeah.
opportunity, I'm trying to think of activities for my kids, and a lot of the interaction was in sports related. When I was a Mighty Mites football coach, and had kids from all over town, had minority kids involved on that, got to meet some really cool people that I'm still friends with today, that were either coaches on the other team or helped me as one of the parents when I was coaching the kids, and then that interaction is what we lack. But interaction is one of the things that we seem to lack in our society now anyway. Everybody's on social media,
Right.
and interacting in that way, as opposed to large gatherings or activity groups.
Right. And so, and I think that's important. Why I bring that up is that, school is where most of the diversity is for our community. That's where most of the diversity is. And that's where it starts. So in order to become more diverse, have more equity, have any inclusion that's going to be growing, it has to start at the school, because that's where it's starting. And hopefully if it happens there with the children, it'll happen outside of school, as kids start to welcome and accept one another, and then introduce families together and come out, to these events. And while we're talking about events, don't forget about Juneteenth. And we're having our 5K. We're having our Freedom Walk celebration, and we also have a music festival downtown. So I'm excited about those events. That is another way that your supporters or anyone else can get involved with multicultural events, especially for Black minorities, and anyone else that comes in the marginalized type of realm, and, to engage and just come talk to people and get to know them, or just show your support and let people know, like, hey, I'm here, I'm willing to get to know you, and, just be your friend, and let you know that, I'm a part of the community. If you need me, contact me and connect, to kind of make that connection. So moving on here, let's see. The next question is, what do you say to the minority students who kind of are affected by the CRT debate? One topic, let me go back first, because I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to answer this. With the CRT situation, a lot of the national issues that people have really pondered was that white students are being made feel guilty. What do you say about that? And is that true?
Well, I think that is a politicalization of what they're trying to teach in schools, which is to talk about our country's difficult past with regards to slavery, and what the actual truth is about what we were doing, about us going all the way back to what Christopher Columbus did. We were taught the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and we were welcome with open arms. Well, really, no. We enslaved people. He that was what was the starting of founding of America. And obviously that wasn't the founding of the United States, but slave trade and slavery issues are pervasive. I get that people have that feeling about the guilt of that, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be taught. That doesn't mean that those issues shouldn't be faced and dealt with, and to figure out how to move forward together, and move forward in a way that we can respect one another, that we can be friends, that we can be common citizens together. I think it's offensive to say that, we shouldn't be teaching these tough topics to students when, for the most part, I think kids that are going to school together and friends together when they're young They don't know any of this. They don't know that just because your skin color is different than mine, that means that I should, whatever. We're just friends. But it is topics that need to be taught, and I have a hard problem with telling with eliminating those issues from curriculum, because it needs to be addressed. It needs to be known about.
And especially, as a minority, growing up with your friends who are not like you, and obviously you're not like them. So you're in two different households, you come to school, you play together, and everything's all good. But then as you grow up in school and you start to hit those high school years, you start to get to be a young adult, and things start looking a little different. And then your friendships start being broken because you're experiencing two different type of lives. And even though it's kind of started the same, it doesn't end up the same. And so I think what you're saying is that, school teaching diversity, equity, inclusion, not CRT, is to help the students face what they're going to face in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to convey. Hopefully that's what I was conveying. It's just a way we've got to get beyond the ability of seeing. It's so cliche to say we got to get them beyond the way of seeing color, but I mean it's just find a way.
The one interesting thing I always wonder, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone, I'm contradictory. I'm doing interviews, so it's going to come out however it comes. However, I always find it interesting that individuals have a really interesting view on Jews and the Nazi situations that happen, and they show their support for it, and they show their empathy for those people who went through that and what they went through. And however, when it comes to slavery and Black Americans, it's kind of, that was a long time ago. Get over it. And when it comes to Jews, however, it's that's a big part of history. You need to respect that. You need, it's really,
I see where you're
black and white.
Yeah, that's a sharp contrast of course to what you're bringing. I don't know that I thought about that in a while, but that's a great analogy there between the two issues. I mean, you've got the same thing. It wasn't racial, it was religious, but it's the same issue. One group was killing and suppressing another group, enslaving them, and everybody stands up for the Jews against the Nazis, and not addressing how the issue of slavery is still pervasive in our society.
It affects, a group of people.
But I mean, and that's not even a fair thing to say that it was such a long time ago. I mean, look, civil rights has only been around for 50 years.
Yeah, it's as old as my mom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like my mom's still alive. My grandparents are still alive, and they actually went through and faced these things. And so, to say that it doesn't exist and it shouldn't be taught is taking away the actual very living things that people are going through and kind of saying that they don't exist.
Well, I mean, it's actually more recent than the Nazis and Jews. I mean, if you want to think about it, I mean, the 60s is what you're talking about. There was civil rights revolution. In the civil rights movement, not revolution movement, that it's more recent, and people need to have a more open mind about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is just to bring, and this is not to take sides, it's just to bring education to individuals of what we're facing, what's going on, and what's going on in the school system, and how they go together. As far as why it's so important for students to know what other students are going through. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And so now back to the original question, which was, what do we say to the students, that are actually, the Black students, the minority students, the brown, the Asian students, that are going through being on the other end of the hot topic of the, oh, don't talk about these things that they're going through. What do we, we always talking about, oh, how the white student feels about the CRT issue and their guilt or whatever's happening to them, but we're not talking about the silent, questionable feelings that the young Black student is having inside about this going on. Oh, well, we can't talk about these things, or we can't talk about your history. I guess that's how I should say it. Like, we can't talk about your history. It's too controversial. We can't talk about your history. It's too political. We can't talk about you. It's a negative thing to talk about. Like, what do we say to those students? And, in order to kind of give them a little bit of encouragement or redirection that it's not their fault that this issue is such a big issue in a school.
I wish I had the perfect answer for that.
I know it's a deep question.
All I can say is that if I'm on the board, that I'm going to be listening, and I'm going to be receptive to ideas and how to deal with these issues, and think about, from your perspective, what you brought to me on this issue, Mia. How that impacts those students, and that'll be in the back of my mind the whole time, is how they are reacting to it. And if it takes me meeting with, I meet with anybody, but I mean, I can meet with those students that are feeling that thing, and find out from them what they think ought to be talked about, or what they think ought to be the perception. I don't think that just because the white kids feel guilty about what they're learning should be a hurdle to the fact that needs to be taught.
Thank you for that response. Now let's talk about school board. What do you see as a major issue facing your school district and public education?
Well, I think that there are lots of different issues that are facing our district right now. The teacher shortage that we're having to deal with. The number of applicants are down. We want to bring the best teachers to Springfield Public Schools, and we need to make sure we're doing that by bringing about competitive rates for pay and competitive ability for the teachers to continue to excel and to earn more. Beyond just getting more education themselves. It needs to be maybe different ideas about how to go about raising those salaries each year. We've got to come to grips with the level of poverty that we have in Springfield, and the number of Title I programs in schools on free and reduced lunches, and how that impacts the educational process. We talked about that a little bit earlier with test scores and how kids are performing in school because of what they are experiencing at home or not experiencing.
Yeah, what they're consuming. Yeah, absolutely. Given all the issues that arise, how can the board stay focused on student achievement?
That's a good question. That's how I kind of view this. The board is going to have all these ideas in the air and focusing, and I think that's going to need to come about from the fact that the board has to be able to be a cohesive unit and work with the superintendent to implement the policies that she wants and that the school board wants, in order to help bring about the change that we want to see in school in the testing.
Great. How does the school board balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burdens, if there are any?
Taxpayer burden depends on who you talk to. Well, I mean, we got to be the way that the board needs to be, and the school district needs to take care of taxpayer money and treat it like, this is my own money. I want to make sure that we're investing it wisely, that we're using it wisely, that we're not wasting it on something that doesn't need to be, the money doesn't need to be going there, and make sure that we're good stewards of people's money, because that's a trust that they placed in us. With if there's a bond that needs to be passed in the future, then we'll have to have a good reason for doing that. And a prime example of functioning, a good example of what the school board did and the district did, was when the last one came about, they sought public input. They had a task force that had people from all over town that were involved in that process. And I think that when you have that level of buy-in across the district, that is what makes good policy.
Yeah. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the current and the proposed budget for your school district, or for our Springfield, Missouri?
Well, I mean, as far as specifics, I don't know that I can get into specifics here. We're going to have it memorized, but I want to make sure that any budgetary item starts with, any budget year, we have to start with teachers and staff, and then maintenance and whatever else that needs to go on into it. An investment in buildings and technologies and those types of things. I think I've said before, if you don't have good brick and mortar, you can't produce good mortar boards. So make sure that we have all those needs met, and make sure it's balanced and plan for the future.
Right. And just to highlight, what your priorities, highlight why you feel the first two that you listed are on the top of your priorities as far as budget.
Teachers and buildings. Because those are the two things you have to have in order to be able to teach kids. You got to have good teachers, and you got to have facilities to do it. If you don't have those two things, then you don't have much of a school. I think a prime example of that, I mean, we've had this technology of Zoom and that type of stuff, and virtual learning, which in my opinion was what we needed to do, because that was what we were facing. But as far as I think you're going to see that the parents that were able to supplement their kids' education at home, or help make sure that they were online, are the ones that are going to excel. That achievement gap is going to be there, and maybe even wider with the parents that couldn't do those things. And so getting kids in seats in front of teachers that are competent and good teachers is what we need.
Yeah. As far as technology, that's just basically touching on equity again, right? Making sure that the students are in the seats so that they have access to the education that everyone else has access to, especially if a parent is at work and can't supplement the education and stay at home, because they have to go to work and feed their family. So the kid loses out, right? They're not doing anything that day. Right. They may just be at home sitting there waiting to go back to school in order to really get real education and direction. So yeah. How would you determine we kind of did this, your budget priority. So you just talked about, education with teachers and things like that. So we'll skip that question. Okay. But what changes should be made on the state and local level regarding public education?
Well, on the state level, I think that we need to raise the state minimum wage for starting salaries for teachers. Currently our state ranks 50th in starting teacher salaries, which I think is atrocious. So we need to figure out that, and I think the governor has taken good steps there with regards to what he was proposing, raising it to $38,000. I think that's a start, and allowing for the budgetary process to continue to support public schools.
Absolutely. Well, Chad, that is all of my questions, and it's been a wonderful getting to know you and, hashing out these questions, getting out to the public who you are, what you represent, and why you would be a great candidate for Springfield Public School Board. If you have any questions of me.
I don't think so. You and I talked off camera beforehand. And
we did.
Got to know each other a little bit, and what you're doing with your organization. I think it's a very admirable work that you're doing, and I think it's a very necessary work that you're doing, and I think that you're doing a good job at it. So.
Thank you so much. Well, I look forward to our next conversation, whenever that may be. I'll definitely be reaching back out to you to invite you to one of our empowered conversations where we can go into deep dive into some local issues or events or anything, any topics, that might need to be put out into the community for them to hear. But yeah, again, this was great. And I look forward to seeing you on the ballot and all of the supporters that support you, getting them out there to vote for you so that you can get in the position to help the community. So with all due, thank you so much. That was United Community Change, and I look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Thanks.
Bye.